On this week of Thanksgiving, as families gather round tables laden with gratitude, there are so many timeless American virtues for which we can pause and give thanks. To open this special show, I want to honor the fire of exploration that lit the stars in our founding fathers' eyes, to the grit to push frontiers, no matter the years, and the profound thanks we owe to a nation that dares us to dream bigger than ourselves. Tonight, in this special Thanksgiving week broadcast of Fine Point, I take you on a journey to the edge of space and back to celebrate one man's odyssey. Ken Baxter, the everyday American who waited 2 decades to touch the void, proving that the pioneer spirit knows no age, no delay, only destiny. I'm Chanel Rion, and on this day of thanks, we're not just counting blessings, we're launching into them. Ken Rocket Man Baxter isn't a billionaire or a celebrity. He's a real estate investor from Las Vegas, a husband and a patriot who's always held a fascination with space travel. 21 years ago, in April 2004, Ken bought the very first ticket to space sold to a private citizen. He bought that ticket from Sir Richard Branson for $200,000, one of Virgin Galactic's founding 100 seats sold. These funds would be used to fund Branson's space vision. Fast forward to the year 2023, Ken still had that ticket, and on a brisk September morning in 2023, at 8:30 a.m. aboard Unity 22, the company's first fully crewed commercial flight, Ken Baxter realized a dream 20 years in the making. He blasted beyond our blue marble, reaching 55.8 miles above Earth. I had the honor and pleasure of accompanying Ken and his wife, Linda, to legendary entrepreneur Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic space launch facility to witness this trip firsthand. From the sands of New Mexico's Spaceport America, a $1 billion crown jewel of American innovation, home to Virgin Galactic's operations, to the roaring engines of private trailblazers like Elon Musk's SpaceX, Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, and Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, space isn't just for astronauts anymore. By 2025, Virgin has completed 12 missions, carrying 32 souls since Ken's flight, with ticket prices rising to 3 times what Ken paid for his ticket. They now go for about $600,000 amid surging demand and 43 founding ticket holders still in line. And while space tourism is a more familiar conversation nowadays, with Amazon founder Jeff Bezos sending his now wife and a host of celebrities into space in 2025, it was Ken Baxter, over 20 years ago, who lit the fuse, showing an enthusiastic market for non-astronauts who wanted to see the world from beyond our hemisphere. As I stood on the cold desert ground with Linda, Ken's wife, and the rest of the Space Explorer families, we all watched as a small cadre of men in blue suits from radically different backgrounds, life experiences, and walks of life disappeared into the horizon as one. These men couldn't be more different from one another, but they shared this one quality. They lived their lives pushing boundaries in everything they did. Pushing boundaries not because they wanted to provoke, but extending their arms beyond their reach to prove that they could, to learn the new, to see from a different lens that which the rest of the world takes for granted. They defied the norms in every way. Ken turned 70 before liftoff, but age is just fuel for the fire in a pioneer like him. As our space frontier explodes with SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin driving a global industry that already sent civilians like Jared Isaacman on private Polaris Dawn missions in 2024, Ken reminds us, exploration isn't a young man's game, it's the pioneer in all of us. All right, Ken, a little over an hour ago, you were 50 miles above us. We were standing here looking up at you.
55.8 miles.
You've waited 19 and a half years to get to
Yes.
almost 60 miles above us. What was that first initial feeling when you got to zero gravity?
Boy, that's a hard thing to say because
Everyone came back and they said they were speechless.
First of all, when the rockets roared, it wasn't as fast as you thought it was. And then all of a sudden, whoa! I mean, and then all of a sudden you're at 4 Gs, and 4 Gs is pretty serious. I mean, you're just crunched back down. It's tough. And so at the end of the day, right after that rocket stops, you're in weightlessness. And so then you get to float around and look out the window. We looked down, and this spaceport looked like about that big. I'm serious. This runway that's several thousand feet looked like that, and you could hardly see this building. So
you've waited so long. You were one of the founding ticket purchasers. Walk us back to that moment when you first bought that ticket. I mean, this is 20 years ago almost, right? Did you buy this online? Did you send in a mail-ordered check? Like, how did you hear about it? And then
I was watching 60 Minutes, and Burt Rutan and Richard Branson were both talking, and they said they were going to start this spaceship company, and they said they were going to take people to outer space. And the next morning, which would be Monday morning, I went to my office, talked to my assistant, and she says, I told her, I says, get a hold of Richard Branson. She says, how do I do that? And I said, call Virgin Atlantic and tell him this. My boss wants to be the first one to go to outer space on your rocket. And Richard Branson called me on his cell phone. I still have it in my phone. And that's how it started.
Did you ever have any doubts as to your desire to go?
No. I only thought about it once today, but we came down so fast. It was, you couldn't even imagine. You know, when they say 80,000, 70,000, 60,000, it's almost that fast. That rocket is falling, coming back to that runway. Amazing.
Sir Richard Branson has long said he wants for the world to be able to see the world.
Yes.
Right? He wants to democratize space. You've seen it now. You are going to take a few days to think about how it's affected you and all that. But what do you think would happen if most people had the experience you had today?
You know, right now it feels so privileged to be a part of this. When I was walking toward the rocket this morning, all you guys back here, and they drive us over in the cars, and we put on our parachutes, and then us 3 astronauts are walking toward the spaceship. I said, I can't believe this. Look at all these people, and it's all for us, just the 3 of us. You know, look at all these people, and look at all these employee cars. Every one of these people, their focus today was to get this rocket up into outer space and back safely.
So I take it you would give Spaceport a 5-point review. Would you do it again?
Tomorrow, if they would do it. Heck yes. Are you kidding?
Well, maybe you might have to ask Linda about that one. Linda, Ken's wife, stood with the other families of these civilian space tourists, a testament of courage and gratitude themselves. Courage in that they allowed their loved ones, men who have lived fully, realize and embark on a younger man's dream with no guarantee of success. Gratitude in that they returned to Earth. Each of these men signed extensive informed consent documents and waivers acknowledging the risks of this flight. The risks are real. In 2015, a Virgin Galactic spacecraft crashed and killed its pilot, injuring another due to serious anomalies. Yet today, space tourism is currently too new to be regulated. But these high-risk, high-thrill first flights for civilians may not make them astronauts or pioneers in the scientific sense, but they are pioneers nonetheless. The first wave of experimental bodies opening the portal to making space travel something as practical as boarding a Delta flight to Houston. Space travel isn't just for tourism. One day soon, you could board a rocket in Wichita and find yourself in Auckland within minutes instead of hours. But it starts with private companies testing these flights on high-paying civilians willing to risk their lives. So families watched as their loved ones climb into a cylindrical tube, praying for the best, but knowing the worst was always a possibility in ventures of this novelty.
There is no words that can explain the force of that rocket when it's firing. You know, all the training that we go through and all the centrifuge simulation doesn't have words for what happens when that baby goes off. And you're headed to outer space. And then one of the coolest things is you're coming up and the sky is blue, and then it kind of turns gray, and then it's black. Just all the sky is black. And you look around and there's no more blue. And the horizon's way over there. And
later that evening, Ken "Rocket Man" Baxter would receive his wings in a special ceremony with fellow civilian astronauts, the brave few who waited. Ken, like his fellow passengers, were allowed to bring personal effects into space with them. I spoke to one passenger, Lee Berger, a renowned paleoanthropologist from South Africa. He brought with him fossilized bones found in the cradle of humankind, and it brought to mind that famous scene out of Space Odyssey 2001. The scientific world would later explode in outrage that the fossils had been jeopardized by being taken to space, but the bones and the astronauts all returned to Earth in one piece. Yet, this was the least controversial thing brought into space that day, or maybe ever. Ken Baxter carried America with him, tucked in his suit, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, our sacred blueprints, flown nearly 60 miles above Earth on flight VSS-03, the first for Virgin's paying pioneers. But he later revealed to me this wasn't all he brought. Turns out Virgin Galactic had one more passenger, in spirit, through Ken Baxter. This copy has been in space, in outer space, along with a Trump flag.
yes. How cool is that?
Ken was beaming. He was a proud American, a proud Trump supporter, and as of that night, a proud astronaut. Virgin Galactic's founder, Sir Richard Branson, checked in on Ken. Ken would forever, in Branson's mind, be the first man who believed in Branson's vision for space tourism. The first man to put his name down and buy a ticket.
And he called me yesterday.
And what did he tell you?
You can finally call yourself the real Rocket Man.
Ken sees space as our next manifest destiny. A destiny that cannot be fulfilled unless we remember our roots and hold hope in its greatness. Back on Earth, Ken reunited with Linda, tears flowing. Did she cry? He asked me post-flight. Oh, she did. And so did I, watching that feather-light descent, 80,000 feet, 70,000 feet, 60, rocket falling like a controlled miracle, feathers intact. Today, Ken's story endures, a reminder that American ingenuity, from Kitty Hawk to the Kármán line, turns waiting into wonder. To the founders who penned Liberty by Candlelight, to Ken Baxter, who carried it to the stars, and to you, watching tonight, may your Thanksgiving be a launchpad for tomorrow's visions. And may the story of Ken, Rocket Man Baxter, serve as a reminder. It's never too late to redeem the ticket to your dreams.